Welcome everyone to the Breath and Posture channel. My name is Bree, and today's topic is going to address that nothing exists in isolation. The real goal of this podcast is to elevate our conscious awareness by addressing ingrained and perhaps habitual state of minds that we have adopted that directly impact our way of operating in our lives. If we think about just the patterns in our thinking, how we see ourselves in our everyday life, how we see ourselves in relationships, these are very important concepts that, whether we realize it or not, are deeply ingrained in us so that our perception is automatically filtered through the lenses of whatever we have decided our place is in the world. I'd like to use a metaphor of waves in the ocean. If we see ourselves for just a moment as waves in the same ocean, regardless of the size of our wave, the power, the individual appearance of our wave, but we settle on the idea that we are from one ocean and we all fall upon the same shores, which eventually draw us back into the same ocean. Then it addresses this core idea that nothing exists in isolation. So why is this topic so important? I too, from day to day, slip back into that perception that I am separate. I am separate from my own children. I'm separate from the car in front of me and the person standing behind me at a grocery store. Sometimes I even slip into this idea that my emotional state is a completely separate entity from my physical state. So these are the things that we are going to touch on in this episode, and I just want to offer this idea that we are addressing your state of mind. We are respectfully seeing what our state of mind, our perception is today, and how, through tools and practices, we can work towards changing that perception into a more elevated and conscious space. So this first area we're going to be exploring is the spiritual and where that aligns with the physical. The mind-body connection. You start to appreciate how our emotions manifest in our body, or how imbalances in our body manifest as emotions. Science supports this through the nervous system, the vagus nerve, and our hormone responses. So there's something very interesting when we start to dabble in meditation or even prayer, and the physiological effects from those two things physically rewire our brain. Back to a word I keep using in these episodes, neuroplasticity. Because meditation and prayer is a conscious effort of merging our body, the physical, with the inside, the spiritual. And we use the power of our thoughts and our breath in order to exist as a bridge between the physical and the inner or spiritual. How does this rewire our brain? Well, immediately as we sit in a meditation that is getting into the depths of ourselves, we're quieting our mind, we're using our breath as a vehicle to calm our nervous system, what it does immediately is lower our stress hormones and increase feelings of connection. it actually changes biology within us. They have measured what happens with our brain, our nervous system, our heart rate, and how it impacts our physical state to just simply place our minds in that serene state. So back to the point, nothing exists in isolation. If with conscious effort we can actually control our body's response, then nothing from this moment forward can be seen as separate when it comes to our inner and outer states. In saying that from this moment forward, when you walk, talk, think, eat some food, do any physical activity, it is so beneficial that from the forefront of our thinking, we are realizing that our body is constantly responding to our state of mind. And our state of mind is a mirror to the health of our body. In Chinese medicine, we can tune into a single organ's function and see the effect on an emotional level of the health of that organ. For example, our heart. Health of our heart can immediately impact our emotional state by showing up in ways of anger, in reactivity, in hate. It can also show up in a positive light with compassion, love, nurture. So our emotional states are absolutely a reflection of the health of our biological construct. And once we absorb this information, perhaps it can start affecting the way we work out, the way we use our energy. Because then we realize that nothing is separate. I can't go to the gym and maybe I can isolate a leg day and work on my legs, but ultimately my body is always trying to work together to rebalance itself, rebalance my insides, as well as my emotional and physical state. So let's go into the second part of this. Back to that nothing exists in isolation. Let's talk about humans and nature. Starting with our breath. How often do we kick back and realize that when we take a nice big inhale, we are inviting the same oxygen that is existing in the air for all of us at every moment? We're bringing that into our system. And then when we exhale, our breath, if we can even say the word our, is then released back into that shared space. And this is constant and continuous for every living thing around us on this planet. The shared experience of oxygen exchange. Now we can imagine a tree. A tree gives us oxygen, and we give them carbon dioxide, which is a literal cycle of shared breath. Every breath you take is in a conversation with nature around us. Who are we with the collective around us? Now, if we start with our brain, we have the mirror neurons and this natural inclination of empathy. Now, in neuroscience, it shows that our brains mirror others' experiences all on its own. So when someone smiles at you, or you see somebody crying, your brain reacts as if it's happening to you. So it's not as much of a conscious choice to feel compassion and empathy as much as it is a neurological response. Dr. Saeed Nasir out of George Washington University, he talks about the word compassion. It is a literal response to pain. We feel the pain of others because we are no different than the other. So in exploring the root of the word compassion, we can dissect it from a scientific space where we are acknowledging that because of our neural response to pain, to seeing somebody else suffer, and because our brain reacts as if it is happening to us, then we can appreciate that we are no different. Our experience is no different than somebody else's experience in front of us. We translate that as compassion. Why does that exist in us? As if everybody is walking around with an antenna and we're all dialed in to the same radio station, but it is us as individuals and individualistic thinking that starts to create this illusion that we're all not tuned in to the same place. The ocean, the waves. I threw a lot of information into this. I touched on a few different areas. However, this is not a complex subject. If our egos and everything that we have built for ourselves in this life, in order to validate that we're all separate, if that can just be set aside, and we can close our eyes right this moment and invite a breath from the space of shared experiences into our body. Let it replenish us. And we exhale the breath of air from our bodies into this shared space. Then we can go inward. We can close our eyes and see ourselves in our seat, firmly rooted onto the same grounds that are expansive and stretch across the world. Our breath is shared. Every wall that is around us, whether it's in our home, our car, our office, every wall had to be built, but it did not exist before. We are a wave in one giant, expansive ocean. Our wave can stretch forth into the beach and touch the sand and ultimately be pulled back into that same vast ocean. How we think about ourselves is how we see the world around us. The thoughts that we allow to be substantial in our minds directly impact our body We can invite thoughts that promote neurohealth, nervous system calmness, cellular regrowth. We can work with that in a physical way to promote health and harmony, which will transpire in a positive emotional state. No more static energy. We can transmute depression, anxiety, fear into joy, inner peace, and a sense of trust that we are a part of all of this, not in a passive way, but in a productive and heartfelt way. Go ahead and take a nice, beautiful inhale, you guys. Fill your lungs. And then just release it out.